two S23 Ultras. One, this one, on OneUI 6.0, and this one on OneUI 5.1. Today, we compare and break down the differences between Samsung's two software variants. Let's go. OneUI 6 has finally arrived on my Galaxy S23 Ultra, and as usual, I wanted to put through a comprehensive guide between OneUI 5.1 and OneUI 6.0. The changes that they've told us about in the changelog, and a couple that they haven't. I am planning on doing a full camera comparison in terms of output between these two, so subscribe for that. But this is going to be more about the visual changes and the interface differences that these two variants have. Let's get started by looking at just that, the user interface of OneUI 6.0. The absolute first thing you're going to notice is that the quick panel has changed. It is a drastic redesign over how it looks and feels and how you use it. In the changelog, Samsung touts that there is a new interface for this, and 110% that is correct. It is changed. One swipe down looks familiar, albeit the same. The only difference is now the brightness slider is there by default instead of having to hunt into the menu to find it. Two swipes down looks completely revamped. It is a brand new look and feel and different way of interacting. Samsung have separated a couple of things in this two swipe down quick panel as well. The Wi-Fi and Bluetooth toggles are now permanently docked at the top. You cannot move or change those. They will sit there. In the middle, you have the box, I guess you could call it, which is basically as it was before, where you can swipe through the different toggles and access different options. Also separated a bit lower is the eye comfort shield and dark mode. This has now been separated from the regular toggles and put in with the brightness slider, which makes sense because effectively it's all part of the display settings. So it's nice to see Samsung have thought that through and made relevant things together. Down the bottom, you've got Smart View, which now has its own dedicated button in this expanded panel, which is next to device control. What you are missing from the expanded panel is the media output button. It's still there from the single swipe down, but it is not to be seen when you expand with the two finger swipe down or the double swipe. Samsung have just decided that it's not necessary in that part. Both views, the single and the double, are editable and customizable to suit your needs and how you utilize them. The more expanded quick panel option though can be accessed now a little bit easier. You've always been able to two finger swipe down from the top to expand the quick panel into its full form, but now Samsung have got this new option. It's called Quick Settings Instant Access, and inside there allows you to toggle on this feature, which from the top right corner of the display, you can swipe down with one finger and it'll bring down the expanded quick panel. Where have we seen that before? That's not on OneUI 5.1, that is just exclusive to OneUI 6.0. A difference in this expanded panel too is some of the toggles where you've been able to long press on before and jump straight into the full settings of that option is no longer existing. So Wi-Fi, for example, if you long press on the Wi-Fi toggle, it'll just expand a shortcut into the Wi-Fi settings. And if you want to go further, you have to press details. On OneUI 5.1, you could long press on Wi-Fi and it'll take you directly into the Wi-Fi settings menu, which gives you the full options. I haven't quite figured out which way I prefer yet. I'll have to spend some more time with the current OneUI 6 way and see what I like. With notifications, there is an option in notification settings to organize it by time as well as by priority. So if you like to see things that came more recently first, you can do that. They also appear as separate cards, which I think looks a lot cleaner and allows you to separate things a lot better, but that could be a personal preference thing. Another notable difference here is the music player. The music player in OneUI 5.1 was kind of basic in the quick panel, but the OneUI 6 music panel is just so much better. It gives you the full visual representation of the album artwork when you have it expanded, which I think looks a lot nicer. And even I always forget what this is called, the thing that tells you how much of the track is being played and follows it along. So I'm gonna get slaughtered for this. It looks nicer. You've got this nice little waveform, which if you're listening to a lot of music is great. You get this visual representation. But music is all about sound, and you'll want to listen to music through today's sponsor, the Tronsmart T7. Tronsmart have sent me out the T7 portable outdoor speaker. This thing is a guaranteed party starter. Featuring SoundPulse audio and 360-degree surround sound through its speakers, this thing can provide a sound output to its 2 tweeters and 1 woofer. Have a listen. It features an IPX7 waterproof design, meaning you can take this thing outdoors and not be worried when the elements start to show up as well. The design also includes a volume wheel, so you can change the volume directly from this wheel very intuitively without needing to press any buttons or break stride when it comes to the party. But the best part about the design of the Tronsmart T7 is that it charges via USB-C, so you can charge all of your devices with one cable. It features custom equalizers via the downloadable app, which you can change. Honestly, set it to Sound Pulse Audio and you will not be disappointed. Switching modes will also change the color LED around the volume line. You can pick up the Tronsmart T7 portable outdoor speaker for yourself via the link in the description. Thank you to Tronsmart for sponsoring this video. Next we move on to the home and the lock screen. Samsung haven't done a lot here. There's just a slight tweak to how you can change things in here. Starting with the home and the app screen, all they've done here is 1, there's a new font, which you'll notice immediately, but 2, in the apps drawer, previously app names used to spill over 2 lines, which, however you want to say it, maybe wasn't visually appealing because it wasn't consistent. You got some on 1 line, some on 2. Now they've just made it all consistent, all on 1 line. What that means is some apps might be cut off, but for example, some apps might just actually look a lot better on that singular line. That's a personal preference thing over what you like, but that's just the way it is now with OneUI 6. To customize and organize your home screen, they actually borrowed their own feature from OneUI 5.1.1, which first launched on the Fold, Flip and Tab S9 Ultra. You can hold down an app on the home screen, and using the second finger you can swipe through and drop it into position. That will feature throughout a lot of different apps, so look out for that as we go through this video. The lock screen got the tiniest of updates, like I'm talking the tiniest. You can reposition your clock on the lock screen a lot quicker. Yep. Moving on to widgets, Samsung has revamped some of the widgets in OneUI 6. There is a new weather widget altogether, but it's called Weather Insights, so that's in there. But the weather widget itself, when you click on it, has just reorganized some animations and visually how it showcases different things compared to what it was on OneUI 5.1. The Smart Suggestions widget has undergone a massive revamp as well. Gone is the option to toggle to the second part of the Smart Suggestions widget, which will show you some sort of direct actions that you repeat. However, that could still be there. It might still be learning my usage patterns, but for now it's completely gone and it looks completely different. The Smart Suggestions widget on OneUI 5.1 looked like a widget. It had a backdrop, apps were housed in a certain sort of style card, whereas on OneUI 6, it just looks like apps on your home screen, which I can't quite tell if I like that yet. Depending on the size of the widget, it might look overbearing, but the point of it is they dynamically change depending on your usage patterns. So you might just have to put up with that new design if that's the type of convenience that you like. Something that has been widely reported is the animations for widgets is broken, I guess you could say. In OneUI 5.1, if you opened an app from a widget and then closed it in that same widget, it would animate and scale back into that widget. In OneUI 6, it doesn't do that, at least in this early version. I have seen on Twitter that that is going to be fixed, but it definitely doesn't deserve the Samsung is finished tagline that you see on Twitter or X every time something like this happens. It's going to get fixed. It's not that big of a deal. Now we move on to the camera. Like I said at the top of the video, I do know that there is going to be some output and processing differences from OneUI 6, and I absolutely plan to test that, and I'm leaving the S23 Ultra that's on OneUI 5.1 now on that software version. OneUI 6 will change a lot of things, and I'm looking forward to seeing that comparison. Let me know in the comments if you want that comparison, because I'm definitely keen on doing it. For now though, let's take a look at the UI differences, because it's changed substantially in terms of its look and its feel. First thing you notice is the design of the camera app looks very different. Whilst functionally there's not a lot of change, just visually it feels different straight away. There's some new fonts in there, and just the layout and the icons also look a little bit cleaner. I'd say a little bit more professional as well, a little bit more purposeful. First thing you notice from a functional point of view is Samsung have split the resolutions and the aspect ratio in photo mode. Previously in OneUI 5 and 5.1 and everything else, if you wanted to change to 200 megapixel, aspect ratio was the way you did it. Now Samsung have separated that out. So if you want to go to 200, you click on the number and choose your resolution. Great. So much simpler to do this. One thing though that hasn't really been spoken about is Samsung have still enabled you to change the aspect ratio. So if you have 200 megapixels set, you can go in and change the aspect ratio to whatever you want. 16:9, 1:1, or full. Never use full. Let's say, for example, you choose 1:1. If you take a photo in 200 megapixel mode, you might be wondering, does it actually capture 200 megapixel? Well, no, because it's impossible. But it does scale it down to 150 megapixel, which I think is kind of clever. Samsung have removed the step of needing to edit it into a square. Once you've got 200 megapixel taken, you can actually do it before you take the photo. I like it. That's why you come to this channel, for those little insights. The change in choosing resolution also extends to video. So again, the same visual representation of resolution split into aspect ratio and resolution is there. You can toggle between frame rate, resolution, whatever you sort of need to shoot your content. This is where it differs though from photo. You cannot change the aspect ratio. The minute you change the aspect ratio to something different, it automatically drops it to full HD and there is no way of changing it. So that's just something to be aware of, that you cannot change the aspect ratio and the resolution at the same time. The other UI change here is that Samsung have extended the photo leveler that you'll find in Expert RAW into every single camera mode. Providing you've got the grid lines turned on, which is very easy to activate, it is just in the camera settings. Every single mode that you use, you can utilize the leveler. So providing you've got some content to shoot at, the AI will activate the leveler and make sure your content is leveled out. I think this is a really, really great idea, especially when you consider that you don't just need to line up your shots in photos. You might need it in video mode, in portrait video, in single take. Basically, any camera mode on your phone, except panorama, is capable of using this leveler feature. So just make sure you turn grid lines on to activate and get this to work. Diving into the camera settings menu now, there's some good updates in here to enable some extra features in your camera. The first is to do with scanning documents. Samsung have now enabled auto scan. So you go in here and into the scanning documents setting, turn this on, and when you point your phone at a document, rather than needing to touch the shutter button, it'll recognize it, capture it, and take you straight to the editing screen. So much better. Before, you had to wait for it to recognize, then tap the shutter. Like sometimes you might not have two hands free to do this. So having auto scan on, especially for receipts, perfection. They've also removed the scanning documents from the scene optimizer menu, which I think makes a lot of sense. I never understood why it was there in the first place. Scene optimizer now actually has been moved into intelligent settings, and there's a whole bunch of new stuff in there as well to talk about. What they've added in here is features that were previously in Camera Assistant. This is what Samsung does. They put things into good lock modules, and when they work and they're needed, they scale them into full versions of OneUI. I love it, and I love the option to be able to basically test things out first and then know what they're going to do when they come into OneUI 6, for example. Basically, the three options here just scale, quality, and speed of capturing photos. It's exclusively for photo mode only, doesn't work in any other modes, and the whole purpose is just to basically optimize things per your liking. If you want maximum quality, great. If you want to have a faster shutter, great. You just will get less processing and potentially less quality at the output. It's up to you. I'll test these out when I do the full camera review or camera comparison in a later video. Very small update. Samsung has allowed you to align watermarks. Sure, you can have a top or bottom now. Great. A few years ago with Samsung Experience before OneUI, Samsung brought in a feature to toggle between the front and rear cameras with a single swipe up or down. At the time, it was a feature that was spoken about, at least from when I was around in that industry, extensively. Over time, it's just sort of been there. Sometimes it's annoying. So, in the settings, you have the toggle now to turn that off if you need to, and remove the potential for accidentally switching, especially during video, it happens a lot, to the selfie camera. For videos, Samsung brought in a feature called Auto FPS on OneUI a couple of years ago. Now, they've made it so you can control the auto frame rate a little bit better. You have a couple extra toggles here in the settings where you can have it off completely. You can have it just for 30 FPS videos or for 30 and 60. If you prefer to lock yourself at 60 when you are shooting 60 frames per second content, you're better off keeping it at 30 only, because if it does turn on for 60, it will scale the frame rate depending on your lighting conditions. And if you just want 60, that might not be what you're after. Probably should have put this next one in the widgets, but kind of relates to camera more, there's a new camera widget and you can customize it. I just got back from Italy and I really would have liked this over there. What this does is you can put a widget on your home screen, wherever you sort of like to position it, and you can customize it to open the camera onto any camera mode you like. But not just that, you can then also make it so it saves to a specific album of your choosing. So if you are going on holiday and you're taking lots of holiday photos, press the widget, take the photo, and it would automatically save it to that album. Meaning that you don't have to clutter up other albums. You can clutter up the one that needs to house all these photos. It is brilliant, and I'm very excited to start using it for future holidays. Now onto the gallery, which kind of ties into the camera. It's all related. The gallery's got some nice, neat little updates in it as well. Some that you've been told about, and some, of course, that you haven't. This is really little, but when you view the details of a photo, and the way you do that is by swiping up on the photo when you have it active, there is now going to be some recommendations for editing based off AI. So you swipe up, and you'll see in that bottom left corner of the photo, it'll recommend you a couple of different editing options. So far, I've only been able to see Object Eraser and Remaster on everything. So I'm assuming there's going to be some more that will activate over time, but for now, they're the only two that I can sort of get to pop up. When it comes to activating the information as well, there's a new button in the middle, so you don't have to swipe up. You can press the eye that's dead center of the gallery in the photo that you're looking at, and it'll bring up the details as well. When you do go in to edit a photo, the actual photo editor has been redesigned also. So it's not overhauled. What I do appreciate though is Object Eraser has been removed from the depths of the photo editor, the 3-dot menu, and actually given a proper space in this new tools button down the bottom left corner. You press that and Object Eraser is right there. Thank you, Samsung. Samsung's extended the borrowing of features from 5.1.1 in now that in stories, Samsung curates stories for you in the gallery. In here now, when you swipe up on a story that you're starting to view, you'll see some thumbnails of each individual item. 3-dot menu, you can remove photos that have been added through this process. It's a lot easier, and OneUI 6 has brought that in to this stories feature. That 2-finger drag and drop that I spoke about before also makes its way into the gallery, where you can select a photo and using the second finger, pick the album that you would like to drop it into and copy or move it to. Simple. Built into the gallery too is a shortcut to Studio, which I guess is Samsung's revamping of the video editor. It's slightly more advanced. I wouldn't say it's extensively more advanced. What I do like about this Studio though is that it saves projects. Before, if you're using Samsung's video editor, you just lose everything if you exit it out of it. But here, it keeps the project saved so you can come back to it. I think that's going to be kind of neat, especially if you content create from your phone. You no longer need to do it all in one hit. You can come back for a couple of different sessions and the project stays in the studio that Samsung has created. The video player's got a redesign, and by redesign, I mean it's a bit of a fresher look, and the toggle for making the playback speed faster or slower is a button now versus a slider. Little things. The last point for the gallery is the new features in Gallery Labs. This is the stuff that Samsung haven't told you about. Each year, when Samsung bring out a new version of OneUI, the gallery in its Gallery Labs section gets new features that are like experimental, or they allow you to bring back things that they've removed. For example, this year in the Gallery Labs, Samsung removed from OneUI 6 the option to have the 3-dot menu in the bottom right corner. Instead, to put it way up at the top right corner in favor of the information button. However, if you like to swipe to access information, you can bring that 3-dot button back to the bottom right corner and remove the info button. That's right, through Gallery Labs. Very simple. Gallery Labs, you basically just turn it on by tapping the About Gallery a few times and it'll then bring it up. My About Gallery example doesn't work because I've already activated it. Just know that. The one I'm interested in here the most though is the remote album. What I can gather from what the explanation says is that if you are in the same household as someone on the same Wi-Fi network, it can create a remote link to an album that you can share. So you turn this on, and when you go into an album at the 3-dot menu, you can hit Remote Album. It will create an IP address. The idea is that it will house it here, and people can scan the QR code or the link to go into this album. Haven't been able to get it to work yet. So I love the concept. When it works, I guess I'll come back and let you know. Okay, let's round this off with the smattering of Samsung apps that have got updates. First thing is Samsung Health. Samsung has completely revamped the user interface of the Home tab. It already took place before. Samsung sometimes readies some of its apps before the official launch of OneUI or the next version of OneUI to get things ready. So it's already pretty much had the design rechange. So let's just talk about what it does. It looks different. Some of the cards are stacked more neatly. It looks got the new font going about it. What's great here is that Samsung has finally allowed you to enter custom cup sizes for tracking water. Before, you had to do it 250ml at a time, which was just, it didn't need to be like that. Finally, now you can customize the cup size. If you have a drink bottle that's 710 milliliters and you drink that whole bottle, press 1 and it'll add that 710. I do still plan on doing a full deep dive into Samsung Health, so let me know if you want that, because this app is phenomenal. You can get a lot out of it if you use it right. In the calendar, Samsung has enabled a new schedule view. Kind of reminds me of like Outlook in that rather than seeing a monthly, daily visual over everything that's happening, it's just a chronological order of things that are happening without any of the gaps that necessarily need to be there. Up to you if you want to use it. Samsung's also more closely tied in the Reminders app. There is the Reminders toggle in there, and you can add and change and view reminders directly from the calendar app. I firmly believe that eventually they should merge these two apps together because they're effectively doing the same thing, but we'll see. The two-finger drag and drop also is in the calendar too. So if you're in the daily or the weekly view, you can select an event with one finger and scroll through the days or weeks with the second and then drop it into the place where you want to move it to. That I like. We spoke about reminders in calendar, but the actual reminder app itself has gone under a visual rebrand. So you can see the difference from One UI 5.1, where it's kind of like a bit of a bland white screen. Whereas One UI 6, it's got these new category folders, I guess, created, and it just looks a little bit more fresh. Kind of reminds me how Samsung rebranded Samsung Notes to include categories and folders a couple of years ago. This has that same feel. So maybe they're not going to put it into calendar. I still think they should. Samsung Internet. I am a die-hard Samsung Internet user. I will absolutely preach it from the mountaintops. It is the best internet browser for your phone, especially if you're using a Samsung phone. It's got some huge quality of life upgrades that some were on One UI 5.1.1, but it's got to One UI 6, and you might be interested in this one. Listen up. You can continue to play video sound in the background once you've exited out of Samsung Internet. Think about it. Let's say you're watching content on a specific website and you just want to listen to it. You can press play on the video. You can then exit out of Samsung Internet and the video will continue to play the audio in the background. This is my 2 months with the Galaxy Z Flip 5. Let's go. Pretty cool. In Samsung DeX or for larger tablet screens, Samsung Internet now gives you a new option for tabs when they're open, splits it into a list view into 2 columns. I think that makes a lot of sense when you are on biggest displays to have that. So that's a small one, but it's there. Smart Select, which is one of my favorite screenshotting tools of all time, has got some new updates in that when you are smart selecting, funny term, it now brings up a little magnifying glass. So it can be a bit more precise when you are screenshotting that little square or something that you're doing. Also, when you pin something to your screen to be there permanently or temporarily permanently, I don't know. What you'll find out is that you can then immediately copy the text from that Smart Select. So you don't have to go back to the screenshot to do that. You can do it from that pin. It gives you the option. My Files, which is a great file tool on your Samsung phone, has got a new option for trash. Previously on One UI 5.1, in My Files, the recycle bin would only show you the files that were deleted from My Files. Now it's basically consolidated all the apps from that delete things like Gallery, voice recording app, and My Files into one and allows you to just empty the trash from there for all of those apps. Much better and smarter than needing to go to all 3 individual recycle bins to do that. My Files also gets the 2-finger treatment in that you can drag and drop from one folder to another using the 2-finger sliding. Yes. Now just the general settings and updates. Samsung have new emojis. If you care about that sort of stuff, you have new emojis to play around with. The main thing I notice is that for the faces, it's slightly more colored versus not. So like the mouths, when they're open, it's not black. It's got a color. That's the extent of what I sort of noticed There's obviously some other facial orientation changes and it's a bit fresher. I didn't mind the way they were, and I don't mind the way they've gone to. They're emojis. At the end of the day, the person who's doing them sees what their phone's emojis are. So the pop-up window tab that was on Fold 5 and Flip 5 and Tab S9 series is here as well. So when you open up an app in a pop-up window, you simply flick it to the side and it creates a tab, so you can just easily bring it back open and it's not intrusive. OneUI 5.1 had it to an extent, but it was a big tab. It was basically just moving it to the side and keeping it big, whereas this purposefully changes its size. I like it. When you share a photo now, it'll give you a preview of the photo before you share it in the share window. Yeah, cool. I guess that can help if you maybe have shared the wrong one. You can get that final send off before you send it off. Bixby Text Call now allows you to switch to it whilst you're in a phone call. So if you answer the phone and you realize it's a scam or a telemarketer and you just want someone else to deal with it, let Bixby Text Call handle it. You can start that process after you've taken the phone call. In the Finder section, when you search for an app, if you find the app that you want, rather than needing to open the app and then go to the action that you're looking to do, if you long press on the icon, you can go to a shortcut. It also still shows you the actions within that app in the Finder menu. You now just have this extra option that you can long press on it to do that as well. Cool. Samsung has enabled a much smarter airplane mode, and I tell you, it was needed. When you turn on flight mode now, or in OneUI 5.1, it turns off everything. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. With this though, if you go back in and activate Wi-Fi and Bluetooth after activating flight mode, the phone will remember it. Meaning that the next time you turn on flight mode, it won't turn those off because it knows that you will continue to use that. It's great for smartwatch wearers. I just went and, like I said, went to Italy, and every time I turned flight mode on, this got disconnected. And I have to turn Bluetooth back on every single time. Irritating. So this doesn't need to do that anymore. This stops that from happening. Samsung has redesigned the battery menu. It looks a bit different. There's a new way of displaying screen time versus OneUI 5.1. I liked it before. The visual change is just a visual change, and there's some extra information and brought settings out in your face a little bit more, like protect battery, for example. It's still in device care. You still can access it from there. It's just now got its own thing underneath display. Sure. And that's it. That is everything new with OneUI 6.0 that I think is meaningful and will make a difference to how you use your phone. As I use it more and more, I will find out little nooks and crannies and intricacies that I think will make a difference. So I will talk a little bit about those on X/Twitter. So come follow me on there. Also come follow me on Instagram. Subscribe to this channel while you're at it. Like I said, that camera comparison between these two phones is coming, and I'll see you in the next one. You!